Chapter 1. The Kigali Summit and the New Oath. Kigali, the modern capital of Rwanda. This time, it was not hosting a technology fair or a tourist event. It was hosting an unprecedented diplomatic gathering in African history. Representatives from over 30 African countries came together at this meeting, free from media censorship. The guest of honor was clear: Ibrahim Traoré. Before speaking in front of the cameras, he addressed only the leading leaders of the continent in a private session. The room was silent. Traoré walked heavily to the podium and scanned the room with his eyes. Then he said, "They kept us divided for years. They saw each of our countries as separate files. They controlled, divided, then turned us against each other. Today, we are here to break that cycle. Neither the West nor the East will be our masters. Africa will rise with collective wisdom." At that moment, the room stood up. The applause lasted for minutes. At the end of the summit, a declaration called the African Honor Pact was published. This text envisioned a joint stance against foreign interventions, economic solidarity, and regional military cooperation. For some leaders, it was just a declaration, but for the people, it was the beginning of a call. Chapter 2. Diplomatic Crisis in Tel Aviv. An extraordinary meeting was held at the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Netanyahu was angry. The leaks could not be controlled, and Traoré had publicly defied them in front of the media. The head of Mossad gave a brief. Prime Minister, a new diplomatic structure is being formed in Africa. China is sending supportive signals. Russia is silent but active. The US appears neutral but has sanctions threats on Burkina Faso. Netanyahu slammed his fist on the table. "Show me that Israel is not alone there. If we lose Africa, our position in the Middle East weakens. Consider cutting off foreign aid. Also, start media campaigns to portray Traoré as an extremist figure." However, these moves led to stronger reactions than expected. Chapter 3. Perception Operation and Backfire. CNN, BBC, France 24, and some major media outlets soon filled with negative news about Traoré. Headlines like "Extreme Nationalist," "Authoritarian Leader," "Dangerous Anti-West Rhetoric" adorned the front pages. However, social media reversed this perception game. Traoré's speeches were watched by millions on Twitter, X, TikTok, and YouTube. Hashtags like #VoiceOfAfrica, #Traoré Manifesto trended worldwide. Famous intellectuals, thinkers, and the African diaspora joined in. African academics living in the US, France, and the UK issued a joint statement. Traoré is not alone. Africa has the right to self-determination. Chapter 4. Economic Warfare Begins. Israel and some Western allies quietly started economic steps. Some foreign investments in Burkina Faso were halted. Pressure was applied to the country's financial system through international banks. Chapter 5. Military Alignments and Collective Defense. Following the summit, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, and Guinea agreed to a regional security pact. They decided to reduce dependence on foreign mercenaries and build their own military capabilities. The African Honor Pact included plans for joint military exercises and intelligence sharing. In a closed-door meeting, Traoré stated, "For too long, we allowed others to police our lands. From now on, our defense will be built by us, for us." This new security alliance sent shockwaves through the international community. Chapter 6. The Global Reactions. China expressed support for Africa's collective efforts, but warned about maintaining balanced partnerships. Russia offered military training assistance, but insisted on respecting national sovereignty. The United States watched cautiously. Intelligence reports began referring to the Traoré model as a significant geopolitical development. In Washington, debates ignited. Either we adapt to Africa's new direction, or we risk losing influence. Israel's government was split. Some ministers called for engagement with Traoré, while Netanyahu remained resistant. Chapter 7. The Cultural Renaissance. The diplomatic and political surge was mirrored by a cultural awakening. African cinema, music, and literature blossomed with new confidence. Netflix greenlit a documentary series titled New Africa, highlighting young voices and the future. Music charts were dominated by artists celebrating unity and independence. Festivals across the continent showcased a new pride. not only political but spiritual. Chapter 8. Economic Resilience and Local Empowerment. As Western investors retreated, African entrepreneurs rose. Women's cooperatives expanded. Technology hackathons flourished, and local industries grew. The government launched incentives to boost domestic production, emphasizing self-reliance. Traoré's mantra echoed everywhere. The economy is not just numbers, it's dignity, will, and independence. Chapter 9. Israel's unexpected outreach. Cornered, Netanyahu's government released a surprising statement. Israel respects Africa's sovereignty and is ready to reopen dialogue with President Traoré. This move split Israeli politics. Critics called it weakness. Supporters hailed it as pragmatic. Traoré's response was firm. The past does not define the future. But we never forget. Chapter 10. The New African Constitution. Led by Burkina Faso. Several countries initiated constitutional reforms emphasizing collective governance, environmental stewardship, youth representation, and women's leadership. The African Union Declaration of Humanity proclaimed, Africa will be shaped not only by its wounds but by its hopes. We are the people, we decide. Chapter 11. Foundations of a New Era. Building on the momentum. Traoré and Netanyahu's teams cautiously explored new initiatives, promoting mutual respect and equitable development, education exchange programs, technology sharing, and joint peacekeeping missions were proposed. Developing nations watched with keen interest, eager to break free from dependency shadows. Chapter 12. Bridging Worlds. The relationship between Israel and Burkina Faso evolved, marked by cautious diplomacy and mutual understanding. Though tensions remained, channels of communication opened that hinted at a potential shift. Traoré emphasized that true partnership required transparency and equality, not hidden agendas. Chapter 13. The African Collective Defense Force. Inspired by NATO's model but rooted in African sovereignty, the African Collective Defense Force, ACDF, was established with Niamey as its headquarters. The ACDF aimed to coordinate intelligence, cyber defense, UAV surveillance, and border security. Chapter 14. Diplomatic Turmoil in Tel Aviv. Inside Israeli government circles, public opinion polls reflected dissatisfaction with the handling of African affairs. Calls for a recalibrated approach grew louder. Some diplomats resigned in protest. Younger analysts advocated direct talks with Traoré, but Netanyahu hesitated. Chapter 15. Cultural Wave. African youth-led cultural movements gained global attention. Documentaries, music, and literature celebrated sovereignty and resilience. New festivals highlighted African heritage and the continent's rising global role. Chapter 16. Economic Nationalism and Local Initiatives. As some Western investors withdrew, local enterprises flourished. Youth innovation hubs and women-led cooperatives sprouted across Burkina Faso and neighboring countries. Government incentives fueled domestic production and digital economy growth. Chapter 17. The Lagos Declaration. 17 African countries convened in Lagos to formalize the creation of the new Africa Council. Its mission was clear: boost intra-African trade, develop a unified defense vision, coordinate policies against foreign interference, build cultural independence and media influence. This marked the beginning of a new power bloc within the global system. Chapter 18. Israel's Internal Reckoning. Prime Minister Netanyahu watched the rapid changes with concern. In a private meeting, he admitted, Traoré has awakened Africa, and we are still trying to figure out where he stands. Meanwhile, in African Union headquarters, diplomats echoed a renewed spirit of unity and confidence. Chapter 19. Diplomacy behind closed doors. Despite public tensions, secret talks between Israeli and Burkinabe officials began in Amman and other neutral locations. Both sides explored avenues for dialogue without media scrutiny. The talks focused on pragmatic cooperation but highlighted the challenges of reconciling divergent interests. Chapter 20. The Manifesto of Hope. Traoré published the new Independence Manifesto, outlining 10 key principles for Africa's future, covering defense cooperation, digital, economy, youth empowerment, media collaboration, and cultural exchange. The manifesto was widely shared and embraced by activists, entrepreneurs, and communities alike. Chapter 21. Netanyahu's secret visit. In a rare move, Netanyahu secretly visited Ouagadougou via Amman to meet Traoré. The private midnight meeting was undisclosed to the public. Following the meeting, Traoré's spokesperson stated, "Last night, a reckoning of the past and a blueprint for the future were discussed. The time for talk is over. It is time for action." Chapter 22. Rising voices across continents. Traoré's call for unity and self-determination resonated far beyond Africa. Activists in Latin America, Southeast Asia, and parts of Europe embraced his message, igniting transcontinental dialogues on sovereignty and resistance against neo-colonial influences. Chapter 23. Israeli political divide. Back in Israel, the government faced internal turmoil. Some ministers urged engagement and reform in Africa policy, while others clung to old paradigms. Public protests and media debates reflected this polarization. Chapter 24. Silent supporters. Unpublicized but influential diplomatic channels emerged, with some Western officials privately acknowledging Africa's new direction and encouraging constructive dialogue. These quiet endorsements hinted at shifting global alliances. Chapter 25. The economic rebirth. African entrepreneurship flourished with renewed vigor. Digital innovation hubs, sustainable agriculture projects, and community enterprises flourished, reducing dependency on external aid. Chapter 26. The cultural renaissance. A renaissance of African arts and culture blossomed, celebrating heritage and envisioning futures beyond historical oppression. Music, film, and literature became tools of empowerment and global storytelling. Chapter 27. Diplomatic shadows and rising resolve. Reports surfaced alleging covert Israeli intelligence attempts to infiltrate African reformist groups. The claims, though denied by Israeli officials, fueled mistrust and strengthened Traoré's resolve to safeguard Africa's sovereignty. The hashtag Africa will not be watched trended globally as youth rallied around the message of vigilance and independence. Chapter 28. Silent diplomacy, loud signals. As Traoré's public statements shook established norms, Israeli corridors buzzed with uncertainty. Social media amplified the call for African dignity, while Western media tread cautiously. Chapter 29. Shadow alliances and open fronts. Traoré's strategic partnerships with China, Turkey, and Gulf states challenged traditional powers. Internal rifts appeared in Netanyahu's cabinet, reflecting the magnitude of this geopolitical shift. Chapter 30. Bamako, the heartbeat of resistance. In Bamako, the spirit of African renewal thrived. Youth movements, women entrepreneurs, and cultural collectives embodied the change Traoré envisioned, reshaping economic and social landscapes. Chapter 31. The UN moment. Traoré's historic speech at the United Nations declared Africa's sovereignty and called for equal partnership. The address polarized global opinion but marked a milestone in international relations. Chapter 32. Strategic recalibration in Israel. Acknowledging the new realities. Netanyahu's administration initiated steps to re-engage with Africa through dialogue and cooperation, albeit cautiously. Chapter 33. Dawn of a New World. Ibrahim Traoré's journey was more than political. It was a call for a new global order, where dignity, equality, and self-determination prevail. The future now belongs to those who dare to rise. To those who walk with us, the door is open. But remember, only the courageous will endure this journey. Join the conversation. Where are you watching from? Subscribe for more grounded political analysis from the Global South.